So today I'm reading off of WorldNet Daily. I read different news sites and I come upon this particular article once again, and the way the article is titled got my attention. It says, did Jewish rabbi really, and the word really is underlined, really see Messiah? Now, for a good while, this particular website touted the fact that Yitzhak Kaduri, and it was proof that he mentioned what the name of the Messiah was in a letter that he wanted to be open 1 year after he died. That is a known fact. And of course, Yitzhak Kaduri was one of the most famous teachers in all of Israel. And one of the most beloved. But when I saw the way they did the title of this article, I knew something about this was amiss. It reminded me of in the beginning, where the serpent said to Eve, "Did Jehovah really tell you?" All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the article, and I'm going to go back to some scriptures that I've gone over the last couple of days. So here's how it starts. And it always starts with a book, folks. They're trying to sell you a book. It's all about the money. The feedback from people who have read the book and or have seen the movie has been overwhelmingly positive, Gallup says. All right, I missed the beginning of the article because they've got all these advertisements in the way. You can't see the beginning. All right, Carl Gallup's explosive book, The Rabbi Who Found Messiah, the story of Yitzhak Kaduri and his prophecies of the end time ignited furious debate around the globe. Now, the feedback from people who have read the book and or have seen the movie have been overwhelmingly positive, Gallup says. The only negative feedback is from people who falsely assume the conclusions which they believe the book may draw, but they haven't read it yet. I think most people will be pleasantly and greatly surprised when they read through the book. There are some, however, who would prefer the story not get out to the world. Now, those of you who have followed my YouTube videos know that I despise these preachers who go and collect money from the people. And I do not view Chuck Missler differently than any of the other preachers. So I'll continue reading. Chuck Missler, founder of Koinonia House Ministry, said that in the book, Gallup explodes one of the biggest bombshells of our lifetime. The implications of these astonishing declarations from the most venerated ultra-Orthodox rabbi in Israel impacts every one of us, not just those of the traditional Jewish faith. This is a must-read for anyone who takes God seriously, he says. Did the 108-year-old Yitzhak Kaduri, the most famous rabbi in Israel's modern history, really see the Messiah in a vision before he died in January 2006? Very few of his followers deny the claim. Apparently, Kaduri himself disclosed the revelation on several public and heavily documented occasions. But there are two other questions of a much more controversial nature. The first matter revolves around a supposed death note that the elderly rabbi reportedly left with his followers. The note was said to have contained the name of the Messiah with whom he had met in his vision. Furthermore, it is reported that Kaduri left specific instructions for the note to be locked away and not to be opened and left until read until 1 year after his death. According to several reports, Kaduri gave the instructions on his Yom Kippur synagogue message on October 2005 before a congregation of witnesses. A little over 1 year after Kaduri's death, Israel Today ran a story documenting that Kaduri's note was opened and posted on his website at kaduri.net. The story was featured on the cover of Israel Today's print magazine and was posted online in April 2007. The story said that Kaduri's note cryptically identified the name of Messiah as Yehoshua, and it should have stopped right there. It should have stopped right there. But they had to insist on planting deception in this article by adding, comma, the Hebrew word for Jesus. No. Yehoshua is not a word for Jesus. That's a lie, folks. It is a lie. Now, we will go on and continue on through this article, and you will see the deception that is planted by the article's writer into this article. Subsequent interviews with David Kaduri, Yitzhak Kaduri's elderly son, disclosed the controversy around the reported death note. David Kaduri denied the authenticity of the note, even claiming it was not written in his father's handwriting. Yet, according to Israel Today's reporting, several of Yitzhak Kaduri's followers confirmed the note to be authentic. Gallups found that the WND Films documentary movie, The Rabbi Who Found Messiah, film producer George Escobar, includes the footage of David Kaduri and others vehemently denying the authenticity of the note. There is actually one clip of David Kaduri denying that his father ever mentioned the Messiah at all, Gallups said. That indeed is an astounding claim, since there appears to be a myriad of witnesses in print who say otherwise. Gallups said that the documentary contains another fascinating clip of some of Yitzhak Kaduri's own students from his yeshiva or seminary, attesting that Kaduri often taught about Messiah, even that Messiah was Yehoshua. Both the movie and the book presented a very balanced historical and journalistic view of his entire story. Gallup said, "This is surprising and probably unexpected information in the book and the movie. I think most people are going to be amiably astonished at what they read and see." The second controversy, and this is where they're planting the seed of deception. Folks, they do this to sell books. They do this to try to get your money. Please understand this. So he says, they address the first controversial question, and then they go to the second controversial question. The book address goes on something like this. Couldn't Kaduri's vision have been of the Antichrist? Remember what I've been saying? How Christianity is claiming that Israel's true Messiah, Yehoshua, is their Antichrist? So my words are not so far-fetched now, are they? So now they're planting the seed. WND, WorldNet Daily, and this Gallups fella is planting the seed of deception that Yehoshua might be the Antichrist. The second controversial question the book addressed goes something like this. Couldn't Kaduri's vision have been of the Antichrist rather than the Christ? Couldn't he have seen a false Messiah? Okay, I'm going to stop right here for a minute. I'm not even sure if I'm going to go and continue any further. If he said Yehoshua is the Messiah, he is right. There is no other name under heaven, no other, by which any man can be saved. Why? Because within the name of Yehoshua is the name of the Father, Jehovah. That's why. So Jesus or Jesus doesn't count. Yet. There are witnesses who attest to the fact that Yitzhak Kaduri preached that the Messiah was Yehoshua, and this Gallup fella and WorldNet Daily is planting the seed of deception by asking a question, just like Satan asked the question to Eve. I'll go to that question in just a minute. Satan deceived Eve with a question. Never forget that. He asked the question, couldn't Kaduri's vision have been of the Antichrist rather than the Christ? Couldn't he have seen a false Messiah? And Gallup's answered yes. Comma, that possibility is explored extensively in the book and the movie. Again, we have done a thorough examination of the entire story. The book is well researched and heavily documented. It's trying to sell a book. Now, let's go in the beginning, and we'll see how Satan deceived Eve with a question. Genesis 3. Now the serpent was more subtle, verse 1, than any beast of the field which Jehovah Elohim had made. And he said unto the woman, yes, has Jehovah said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? So now he starts questioning fact. This is how he laid the foundation of deception to deceive Eve by asking a question on false premises, questioning fact. And this Gallup's fellow, he questioned fact. What fact did he question? Okay, there were enough witnesses, at least 3 witnesses, who attest that Yitzhak Kaduri was preaching in the seminary, I should say in the yeshiva, that the Messiah is Yehoshua. And so, this bookseller and WorldNet Daily asked the question, could Yehoshua, which the man said Messiah's name was Yehoshua. So what they're essentially saying, asking the question, is Yehoshua, is there a possibility that this Yehoshua is the Antichrist, as they say? And Gallups said yes. So when the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the tree of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Jehovah said, we shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said unto the woman, you shall not surely die. This is the same deception as the serpent. What we just read in WND, WorldNet Daily. And I can tell you this, doing my research and my studies, as far as I know, let's see, well, what was it? I need to double check, but as far as I know, there has been nobody by the name of Yehoshua that claimed to be Messiah, except for the one we know as Yehoshua the Messiah. There was a man by the name of, let's see, Simon Bar Yeshua, something like that. But that's not the same. It's not the same name. No. Okay, let's see. There was a false prophet by the name of Bar Yehoshua, but not Yehoshua. Anyway, it was a sorcerer. It's in Acts 13, verse 6, if you want to go look. But, so, once again, I will have to rub faces in 2 Corinthians 11 and verse 4. For if someone comes preaching another Yehoshua, or a different name altogether, whom we have not preached, or if you receive another spirit, which you have not received, or a different gospel, which you have not accepted, you would put up with it splendidly. Now, in contemporary English version it says, we told you about Yehoshua, and you received the Holy Spirit and accepted our message, but you allow some people to tell you about another person. Now you're ready to receive another spirit and accept a different gospel. Okay, you see what happened? Once again, I have to keep driving this home, because this is the problem that Christianity is brainwashed with. It is great deception. Oh, I need to go back to 2 Corinthians 11 first, because he prefaces it with exactly what I was talking about. Verse 1, 2 Corinthians 11, verse 1. I just talked about how Satan deceived Eve by setting her up with a question based on false premises. That question should never have been asked. The same thing with this Gallup fellow who asked the question, could this Yitzhak Kaduri have seen, or could he be talking about the so-called Antichrist, as they say, knowing when they should know full well that the opposer, the man of sin, the destroyer, sits on a throne in Rome at the Vatican. They should know this. That's who the opposer is. That's who the man of sin is. The son of destruction. What do you mean, son of destruction? The history of the so-called papacy is full of rape, pillage, and murder. And now they're going to call Yehoshua the son of destruction even before he comes. Second Corinthians 11 verse 1. Would to Jehovah you could bear with me a little of my folly. Indeed, please bear with me, for I am jealous over you with a righteous jealousy. And he says, I have espoused you to one husband, so to speak, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Messiah, so to speak. He's not saying that the church is the bride. The churches of those days and all Israel are going to be citizens of the holy city of Jerusalem. Thereby they being Jerusalem, the new Jerusalem, is the bride of the Messiah. Never forget that. It's written in Revelation. Google it. You can find it. Verse 3, but I fear lest by any means, just like the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety. How did he do it? He set it up with a question that should never have been asked. So your minds should be corrupted away from the simplicity that is in Messiah. For if he comes, preaches another Messiah whom we have not preached, or another spirit which you have not received, or another gospel which you have not accepted, you will bear well with him. And they did. Okay, so now we go back to Galatians 1. Verse 6, I am astonished that you are so quickly. Oh, this is, what version is this? New International, we'll go with New International Version. Let's see what it says. That you are so quickly deserting the one who called you to live in the grace of Messiah and are turning to a different gospel, which is really no gospel at all. Evidently, some people are throwing you into confusion, are trying to pervert the gospel of Messiah. But even if we, or an angel from heaven, should preach a gospel unto you other than what we've already preached to you, let him be accursed. And then he curses again. Now, Paul says in verse 10, am I now trying to win the approval of men or the Father? Am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Messiah. Now, interesting point here. They always have to throw in the name of Jesus or Jesus. Why? Why? To please people. That's the reason. Because to Christianity today, only the name of Jesus or Jesus is acceptable to them, not the real name of the Messiah. The false name, that's the name that's acceptable. You see? So what these preachers do, for the sake of money and for the sake of trying to please men, they use the false name, the one that honors Zeus. It is, when you read that article, you realize these people know better. The ones who wrote the article and who wrote the book, they know better. But what drives them to this kind of deceit, if you can understand where I'm getting at here, is the desire to sell something. The desire to profit off of words of truth. And in so doing, what they will do is they will pervert it so that they can sell more books. Please never forget, folks, the gospel, how do I put this? If these people cannot understand the nature in which the apostles were chosen in the first place and why, they will never understand the gospel. Let me explain. This goes back, I believe, in the 2 Corinthians. I hope I can find it now. I believe it's let's see. It was where Paul caught Peter and some of the other apostles in a little bit of hypocrisy. I'll find it, I think. Oh yeah, it's in Galatians 2, verse 11. It's in the same chapter. Now, I will start in verse 1. We're going to try to find King James. Hopefully I can find it. There it is. Then 14 years I came. Let's see here. Yeah. I came up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas and took Titus with me also. I went up by revelation and communicated unto them that gospel which I should preach among the Gentiles. What did he say? Among the Gentiles. Now we've read before, Yehoshua told the 12 apostles, not Paul, but the other 12, that they were supposed to go to none other but the lost tribes of Israel. So we see here that Paul's commission was to go to the Gentiles. And he says it over and over and over again here. But privately, to them which were of reputation, lest by any means I should run or had run and in vain, but neither Titus, who was with me, being Greek, was compelled to be circumcised, and that because of false brethren unawares brought in, who came in privately to spy out our liberty, which we have in Yeshua Messiah, that they might bring us unto bondage, to whom we gave place by subjection, no, not for an hour, but the truth of the gospel might continue with you. But of these who seem to be somewhat, whatsoever they were, makes no difference to him, Jehovah accepted no man's person, for they who seemed to be somewhat in conference added nothing to me. But contrariwise, when they saw that the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed to me, oh, here we go again. There's your second time. Paul said, the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed to him. As the gospel of the circumcision was unto Peter. What? So you see, Peter did not preach I should say, his mission was not in Rome. His mission was not to the Romans, it was to the Hebrews, wherever the Hebrews were. He didn't preach to the Gentiles. Peter only preached to the Hebrews. So why is it that the Catholics claim that the first pontiff, as they say, was Peter, and what makes it worse is that the Protestant churches don't deny it? When we see right here, that would be impossible. Verse 8, for he had wrought effectually in Peter to the apostleship of the circumcision. The same was mighty in me toward the Gentiles. So what he says it again, a third time. Paul's apostleship to the Hebrews was mighty. And likewise, Paul's apostleship to the Gentiles was mighty. This is what Paul is saying. And when James, Peter, and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived by the grace that was given unto me, they gave to me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship that we should go to the Gentiles. That's 4 times. 4 times in the beginning of 1 chapter. Only that we should remember the poor, which the same which I also was forward to do. Yet, none of the churches can recognize the fact that Paul said 4 times in the middle of 1 chapter, within 9 verses, he said 4 times he was the apostle to the Gentiles, and that Peter was not. And no, why nobody raising questions? That would have been the easiest way to dispute the Catholic Church. But what the Protestants did, rather than point this truth out, they went and followed in the ways of the Catholic Church, declaring that Constantine's Sunday was their Sabbath, carrying the same mark of the beast of the Catholic Church as their own mark, preaching the same false gospel, twisted gospel of supersessionism, and believing the false Messiah. And now we have somebody planting the seed. These are Protestants doing this, folks. These are Protestants doing this. Planting the seed of deception by asking a question that should never have been asked. Asking whether Yehoshua, or whether this man who recognized Yehoshua believes that the man who believes that Yehoshua is the Messiah, that somehow this Yehoshua might be the Antichrist. Now, when you go back to the article, you'll see some pictures. Scroll down a little bit more. And what do you see? You see a picture, and the text under it says, the Messiah appears to be the Jewish man Saul, who later became known as Paul, on the road to Damascus, image from the Bible TV series. What do you see in that picture? You see a picture of a man with long hair. Right? First Corinthians 11:14. Paul saw Yehoshua the Messiah, did he not? Yes, he did. Paul says, doesn't even nature itself teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a dishonor unto him? Yet these people insist. They insist on having a picture, an image of a Roman son of one of the pontiffs as their so-called Messiah. They insist on it. And because of this very insistence, they could never believe when they see the real Messiah. They won't believe it. Because they already have an image in their head of what they think the Messiah should look like. That is the reason why you are not supposed to make any graven images for worship. Ever. Because they are a method of brainwashing and deception. And just that picture alone on this particular article in WorldNet Daily is proof enough to tell you that this article, the intent of this article is deceit. I hope, folks, now that you understand how deception works.